Welcome to Facing the Canon. My guest on the programme is my friend, Stephen Derbyshire, one of my favourite church leaders. Stephen, welcome to Facing the Canon.
Thank you for inviting me. It's good to be here.
We've known each other. I was trying to remember. I think we've known each other for at least 3 decades, if not almost 4.
I would say 3.
3 at least.
3, definitely
Yes.
3.
And we've ministered together
We have.
on various occasions.
Yeah.
Now, where were you born, Stephen? Where were you born and raised?
Well, I was born in St Helens in Merseyside.
And for those people around the world, where is that?
That's in between Manchester and Liverpool. You know, so yeah, it's right in between those 2 cities.
And what was life like for you growing up?
My life was poor. You know, there was my parents never had much, but I never felt poor. My dad was a born again Christian. He loved the Lord. He was a man of prayer, and also my mum was a Christian as well. So I was brought up in a Christian home.
So even though you had this kind of Christian sort of upbringing, you kind of lost your way. And when you were quite young, you started sniffing glue.
That's right.
How did that start?
I think because I went to a church and, you know, the people were lovely, but to me, it was just, I'd never seen anyone converted in the church. I'd never seen actually a person become born again in that church. So when I was 13, 14 years of age, I just didn't believe it because I hadn't seen anything. I was a young guy. So, you know, I asked my dad, I said, I really don't want to go to church, Dad. He said, well, okay, you know, I'm going to allow you to leave. So I left, but that left a huge vacuum. I was empty, and I got in with a crowd that were sniffing glue, and the experience was amazing. Sniffing glue. It's the same with any drug. It's amazing to begin with because the Bible says that it's a pleasure for a while. But the damage is done. So I started to sniff glue, and one thing led to another, and I started to get into more dangerous drugs. And by the time I was 15, I was taking heroin.
And you were the first registered person in your town as a heroin addict.
Yeah. I was the first one to be prescribed methadone.
Now, where were you getting the money to purchase these things?
Well, I was doing a lot of dealing as well, you know.
Even at that age?
Even at that age, because... you know, there's an old story here, but I kind of used to break into chemists.
Right, chemists and pharmacies.
And pharmacists.
What, and just steal what? Did you know what you were looking for?
Yeah, I used to steal the controlled drug cabinet off the wall.
What, you take the whole cabinet
the cabinet
off
the wall? Because then there was no kind of security as it is today. And so when the security got tighter, we used to go into the countryside. We used to go into places that were little villages. We used to break into chemists as well. So we used to get drugs. And then it was at that time when Liverpool was the epicenter of drug smuggling because it was all coming through the docks. So I knew I got involved in some very dangerous people, at 16. And so I used to be in, you know, I used to get drugs and I used to deal in them.
And the effect of that, Stephen, you were not a very nice person.
No, not at all.
Like angry.
No, I don't know. I've often thought, why was I like that? Because my parents weren't like that. But I think it was the drugs, and I think it was because I was lacking purpose. Looking back, I just never had purpose in life. So, yeah, I became kind of one of the leaders of the gang, and the low point was when I was in Blackpool. I got involved in a big fight with some Scousers because, you know, there was this rivalry between St Helens and Scousers, and I kind of got into a fight and I was arrested for grievous bodily harm and malicious wounding. And and I was actually released on bail for that. I was kept in overnight. I remember my dad saying, "Son, now this is serious, you know."
Yes.
And then also, when I was stealing drugs as well, when I was breaking in drugs, I got caught, and then I got sent to Risley for 6 months, Risley Remand Centre, and I was in Risley Remand Centre for 6 months as well.
And there was an occasion, I believe, that your father or your parents saw you with stolen goods from a pharmacy, and then your father said, "That's it, you got to leave the house." But the door is always open.
Always open. Yeah, my dad. Yes, we had broke into a chemist, and I was just I thought they were asleep upstairs, and I brought it in. I was just sorting it all out, and my dad came down. And straight away he knew, because because of the change in my life, I was becoming a horrible person, basically. And then he said, "Well, Steve, Stephen, we love you, but we cannot live with this." And I knew that he loved me. Okay, I knew that he wasn't doing this because he didn't love me. I knew that he loved me, so he asked me to leave the house, really. And so I left.
And you were living in squats and
all that, yeah. Terrible places.
terrible places.
Horrible places.
Sharing
Horrible places.
needles with others.
Yeah.
But in one of those occasions, someone stood up holding a crucifix and said,
Yeah.
did they say something like, "I crucified Jesus"?
That's right. So I was in a flat in a place called Beth Avenue in St. Helens, which was the worst of the worst. We used to call it the shooting gallery because we were shooting drugs all night. And anyway, I was in a terrible state, and terrible state. My arms were abscessed, my feet were abscessed. I was injecting in all kinds of rubbish. I don't know, to this day, there was I don't even know what I was injecting at times. But in the midst of all that, and I was out of my head, I just was gone, smashed. And Paul Cheetham, my friend, who later was the first person I led to Christ, by the way. Paul Cheetham stood up with a cross and he said, "I have crucified Christ." He didn't know what he was saying. I don't know whether they were the exact words, but that's how I understood it. And something
shifted.
Something shifted.
In you.
Yeah.
And I like the story where your father was always praying for you.
Always.
And like night vigils praying for you. And he went to the cathedral and he knelt down in the cathedral praying. Yeah. And then he heard this voice tell him about you, that you would be all right.
Yes. And so if I can just take you back to that night when I held up a crucifix. So I left this place and walked home, and I was smashed. And I knocked on my dad's door. It must have been 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he opened the door, and I just fell in the front room, and he prayed for me.
Yeah.
And I don't remember a thing, J.John, but he prayed for me, and he asked me, would I receive Christ into my life? And I said yes. And I realize now, when you look at this chronologically, you realize that at that time that things started to change.
From that moment?
But nobody could, because I was kind of a leader of a gang, I could not make myself vulnerable in any way, but I was taking drugs, they were not having the same effect. And they were pure. This was not mixed. This was pure, either pethidine or morphine or cocaine or whatever. It's pure, because I know the source of it is pure. But it wasn't, I was just vomiting. And I realize now, looking back, that maybe it's because the Holy Spirit had come.
Absolutely. And then your father invited you to church.
Yeah. And I'll go back to the thing in Liverpool Cathedral. Anyway, my mum was shopping in Liverpool. And my dad was praying. He prayed. My dad prayed. He was a prayer. He prayed for me.
Yeah.
He prayed for me. Even so much so, when I was living in one of those squats, I used to go past his house and I used to see my bedroom light on. And it was my dad praying. I didn't know at the time, but he told me afterwards that he was praying for me. Anyway, Liverpool Cathedral, and he was praying, and he was an unassuming guy.
Yeah.
A quiet guy, unassuming. You know, he worked at Perkinson's Glass. He was a painter and decorator. He loved the Lord, got saved within his teens. And he started to go to a Pentecostal church, and he was coming alive again spiritually. Yeah. And he was praying in the crypt in Liverpool Cathedral, the Protestant cathedral, and just pouring out his heart. And he had his eyes closed, and he felt something happen. He felt a presence. And he said, I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't open my eyes. And this person knelt next to him and told him everything about me. He's on drugs. He's this age. His name's Steve. And the parting shot, Tom, your prayers have been answered.
Your prayers have been answered?
Yeah. But I was getting worse.
But didn't your father then open his eyes and look round?
He looked and there was nothing there.
And there's nobody there?
Yeah.
So it could have been an angel.
I cannot see how it was anything else. I just cannot see.
But the Lord had revealed that to him, but you were getting worse.
I was getting worse.
Until you came home that night, and that was when you prayed.
No, I never even after that situation, I was still heavily into drugs, even after that. But things started to change. For example, when I was in prison, I never wanted to see my dad. And, you know, one of the things that I really, 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 really struggled with, because I had a fight with my dad one night. And of course, he never fought with me, but I was just so angry. So I was really completely out of control. And
you hurt him?
I think I did.
Yes.
I think I did. And but my dad was amazing. So, but then he'd gone to this new church, and I could see there's a change. I'd never seen him like that before. But I realised now that he'd gained his, even though it was a prayer, he gained his passion back, you know. And also he was getting the support from the church for me, to pray for me. And the church was right next to the nightclub I was in. So the church was having prayer meetings. The little tiny, looked like a substation. I don't know whether we built a new church there as well. I don't know whether you know. And they were praying for me in this nightclub, and they were just praying. So I kind of, so things were getting better with my dad, and I used to go home every Saturday night because my personal hygiene was dreadful. Dreadful. I was living in a squat. And then he used to invite me to church. And I used to say, Dad, no thanks. But he didn't know what was happening within me.
Yes, something was shifting.
And of course, pride is mixed up in all this. And so anyway, one Sunday, he invited me, and I said yes to church. And he said to me, "Are you sure?" I said, "Dad, I'm sure." And he prayed. He said, "Lord, I pray that there would be no one speaking in tongues. I pray that it would be one of those nice services that nothing kind of dramatic happened."
Yeah, but seeker sensitive.
Yeah, seeker sensitive service. And it was a small church. There was only about 10 young people. There was no one I could relate to, because when I walked into church, I was yellow with hepatitis C.
Yeah.
And of course, in my book, I got treated with that a few years ago because I was carrying it for a long time. So I was yellow. My hair was green. And I had to have slippers on because I couldn't walk because I'd been injected into my feet. So I walked into this church. And there was a young guy called David Tinian.
Yeah.
Just come to the town, and he preached the gospel. I can't remember much. I know that's, as a preacher, I know that God, the Lord, you always want the Lord to go beyond your words. And I always remember that him saying that if you were the only person, Christ would have died for you. And
Yes.
I thought, wow. And I broke. And then I went down to the front, because then, in fact, when I was a church leader, I always made appeals.
Yes.
And I went to the front, and I just felt the love of God embrace me.
Oh.
Absolutely envelop me. I just felt the love of God. And
did that start to heal you?
I think that was it.
That was your transformation.
Because I knew that if I gave my life to Jesus, I knew from my dad, there's no going back. That's it. That's it. So, there's so much, but a few months before then, I got a job as a psychiatric nurse, of all things. Crazy. And I used to love the drug rounds because, there was no recording of drugs then, so I used to always volunteer for the drug rounds, taking some drugs. And so I went into work, and I remember walking home thinking, what have I done? What on earth have I done? But the next day, things were different. The emptiness had gone.
Yes.
I felt Jesus. I felt him. I couldn't understand, but I felt him. And I had to go to work the next day, and I was asked the question, what did you do last night? I went to church. Well, people didn't just go to church. Going back in the day, in the 80s, because there wasn't as many Christians. They started, I said, I don't know, something happened last night to me. But I went into church feeling incredibly empty and lost, and I don't feel like that any longer. But I can't explain it. So things, that was the start of the change, and then I had to go and tell my friends. All these guys had done time. All of them had done time. And I was... Oh dear me! I was in the town centre, and I was giving out tracts.
Yes.
I wanted to give out tracts, and I'm glad that no one asked me about these tracts because I didn't know. But I wanted to do something. It was amazing. There was a transformation taking place. But I saw all my friends coming out of this pub, and they were all my friends, and they'd heard, because I'd been on probation for about 10 years. And I think my probation officer said to some of them, there's a change. Stephen Derbyshire's changed. So these guys came up to me and they said, what's happened? I said, guys, I've become a Christian. I'm not fully understanding what that means at the moment, but I've become a Christian. And I've never taken drugs since. I've been set free from drugs. I don't even want to take drugs.
So you stopped taking drugs from that day in the church when you went forward?
Yeah. From that day in the church, I stopped taking drugs.
And you never had a yearning for them?
Yeah, I mean, when I say never, I tried it, but it just wasn't, I didn't need them.
Didn't need them. So you told these old friends, and what happened?
Well, one of them, because one of them, because we know that we're not changed completely. It takes a long time for us to change. But there was one guy I just didn't like before. And he was the most vocal against me at that point. So he said, I think he had a Catholic upbringing. He said, so are you saying, Steve, that if I hit you, you will turn the other cheek? And I said, I think so. I said, so he hit me, and I decked him.
You decked him, yeah.
But it was I was just about, but I couldn't go any further.
No.
And when he was there, I apologized to him. And that freaked him out even more. I said, I should never have done that.
Yeah.
And it was just amazing.
Wow. Well, a transformation did take place. Yeah. You met your future wife. Yeah. Both of you ended up at Bible college. You then went back as an assistant pastor at the church where you became a Christian for 10 years. And then you ended up going to Ilford. Tell us the story about Ilford and the church there. And I
Yeah.
know you ministered there for 3 decades.
Yeah, it was amazing, really, because when I was in Bible college, I used to drop someone off at Ilford because we used to go to different churches. My church was East Ham,
Yeah.
so I used to drop someone off in Ilford. And when I drove there, I don't know, but I liked it. And it was much different to what it is now, by the way. And then whenever Ilford was mentioned, something kind of resonated within my spirit. And Helen Shapiro came to my church
Yes.
because I had invited her to the Theatre Royal in St. Helens, and she was doing a gospel concert. And she mentioned about the blue and white shop on Ilford Lane. Well, it was a Jewish shop because she's a Messianic Jew.
Yeah, Messianic Jew. And for those that are unfamiliar with Helen, I think, was it when she was 16, she sang a song that went to number 1?
Walking Back to Happiness.
Walking Back to Happiness.
That's right.
Yeah.
So she was, and she became a Christian.
Yeah.
So I invited her, and she was great. And but she mentioned about the blue and white shop, and something happened again. So anyway, fast forward, my regional superintendent, I was at the conference, the annual conference of the Elam churches, and I was walking back to my chalet, and it says, "Steve, would you consider Ilford?" And again, I never confessed it or admitted it, but something was happening.
Yeah.
I went back to Julie, and she just wept. She didn't want to go because God was opening up areas for her. And the church in St. Helens was a fantastic church, brand new building, it's incredible. The flagship of the Northwest Church at the time. So there was no reason for me to leave. And then I said, anyway, she prayed about it like she is a woman of prayer. And she said, we've got to investigate this more. So I went down and I went into the church and I came home. She said, can you tell me? I said, there's nothing good there. I can't think of anything. No worship. The building's awful, but the people are great.
Yes.
And mainly they were non-white people.
Yeah. Very multiracial.
Very multiracial, mainly Ghanaian at the time. But it's amazing what happens spiritually, because when Julie came down to see it, there was on a Saturday afternoon, there was a Ghanaian fellowship that used to meet in the church, and it was all the hanky waving and everything. And my wife comes from Guernsey in the Channel Islands.
Yes.
So, she's the first, she broke the lineage of unbelief in a family because she was the first Christian. And she walked in and God said to her, this is home. It can only be the Lord, because it was so different. I came from a very white, working class background. Julia came from Guernsey in the Channel Islands, walking into Ilford, where it's majority, the white population is the minority, even within the town. And the Lord said, welcome home. This is your home.
But isn't that, Stephen, contentment? Contentment is being in the will of God.
All the time.
And you, when you hear God's voice, you just got to go.
That's right.
And you both did go.
With our 3 kids.
And you saw just remarkable growth. I mean, astonishing growth. I ministered at your church a number of times over the years. Astonishing growth. And the Lord gave you a great vision, not just for the church and the community, but for the wider community. And you tell some of the story in this book, your book, Out of the Ruins. And this is a remarkable story. Can you tell us this story?
Well, I mean, the beginning of that book is about my life. My life came out of the ruins. And then I had been planning to move out of our present building for years, because I knew that we had to. And I think one of the challenges in London for anybody is because of the way that things are changing politically. A lot of people in rented accommodation, I think that it's going to be a challenge for them moving forward because of the way it is, because I've seen it happening. But the Lord, gave a group of us a vision to build a huge church, a big church in the heart of Ilford, right in the city's town centre. We tried so many other things in the process. When it's in Acts 16, and well, before then it says in Revelation that he opens a door that no one can close, and he closes a door that no man can open. And the closed door is a gift at times. It really is. It's a real gift because it directs you in the direction you should go. So we tried everything. We tried so many things, and I've not got time, but we tried buying the British aerospace, and we got consent locally, but then it went to the Deputy Prime Minister's office and it rejected it, and it was all these kind of things, and we were thinking, but isn't it amazing, because we went to a 5-day inquiry about that, our building. It was probably like a proper court case, this. And the inspector came back and recommended that we shouldn't get this building. But it needs to go to development for properties. But what she put in her report is that the things that City Gate needs to do or wants to do should be done in the town centre. Yes. So, of course, that opened the door. We had a building in the town centre. We bought 2 other buildings. We bought 5 buildings in the town centre, but it was all heading up to, realise now, that it was all heading up to completely demolishing our previous facility and rebuilding it. And that's what we did.
And that's what you did.
And that's what we did.
Well, Stephen, transformed in St. Helens, guided by the Lord, used by the Lord, faithfully rebuilding the ruins, handing over the church. But the story hasn't finished, and the Lord is using you in many, many other ways. You are a real encouragement and a real inspiration, Stephen. And it's wonderful how the Lord has used you over the years and is using you now. It's been a great joy to have you tell a little bit of your story. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us on Facing the Canon.
Thank you.
I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I hope it's inspired you and encouraged you. Thank you so much for joining us on Facing the Canon. Please join us again.